Meant to Be Well Summit is created by three incredible women, Ambreen, Valerie and Andrea. The main objective is to bring together experts from around the world to raise awareness about the importance of holistic well-being. This summit aims to explore the multidimensional aspects of well-being, including physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. This isn't just any event. It's a unique, global summit marathon designed to cover all time zones across the globe. We created this event because we genuinely care about you. We believe that everyone deserves to thrive and live a life of well-being. This summit isn't just about learning, it's about transforming your life. Our speakers are dedicated to inspire, uplift, and help you tap into your full potential. Join us, and let these world-class thought leaders guide you toward a higher level of mental, physical, and spiritual well-being.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here. Hi Nishith, Alison, Karin, and I see Zoya popping up. Once she's fixing her camera, I will bring her up too. Thank you so much for doing this session. I'm really excited for the masterclass, and I will leave you in the studio and enjoy the session with Nishith. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrea. And first of all, thank you and Valerie and Ambreen for hosting this. I always tell everyone that you guys are like superwomen, like creating all of this in 2 days. There's so much that goes on, and there is so much value. Like you said, marathon, right? There are like speakers from all over the world and sessions for everyone. There's something in it. So thank you so much for hosting that. I'm super excited to be here. I think this is my third or fourth summit with you. And I'm excited about today's session as well, because this is something I find it quite unique and surprising for me. Because when we think about Buddhist monks, and the first thought that ever comes to is calmness and well-being. Everyone associates well-being with Buddhist monks. But then there is the other side of it where we have base jumpers, and you wouldn't imagine this base jumpers would have the same sort of well-being patterns that you can observe and that you can learn as Buddhist monks. They're so extreme side of things, because monks, like, the first image is meditating in the mountains, and base jumpers is like this first thought that most people get is adrenaline junkies, but they're not. They're far from being adrenaline junkies. So there is so much of common patterns that I've learned from both of them, and which I find it very, very unique, because one gave me drive, and like, base jumpers, there's so much to learn in terms of finding that passion and finding that drive. And one of the things that happened with me is in the early days of me starting this, and in the early days of me getting into the journey of personal growth and well-being, was that I was super passionate. I got into this when I was 17 years old. So I was super passionate about everything that I wanted. I was driven, and I was young. So I was that kid who was like, I want to make things happen, and I want to change the world, and I want to impact everything. As a result of that, I got very overwhelmed. And that's when I turned to Buddhist monks, because I work with NLP, and big part of NLP is to model patterns. So I went to Buddhist monks to kind of model patterns of calmness, because I was so driven. I was so focused on achieving everything that it just took away. I got so much stress with it. I got so much anxiety with it. I got so much overwhelm with it. And I was always like moving forward. And I thought, okay, you know what? I want that stability. I want that strong foundation, and I want that calmness. And so I went to the Himalayas, and I started modeling Buddhist monks to kind of find that calmness, which was a big part of my well-being. But what's interesting is, as we say in NLP, or generally that happens, that if you change one thing in life, it has a larger impact on your ecology. And so one of the things that happened is that as I got calmness, the larger impact was that my drive, the drive went away, because now I'm just calm. Oh, whatever happens is fine. If we do this, it's okay. If we don't, it's fine. Everything is great. Everything is brilliant. And that had an impact on my drive, because it had an impact on what I wanted to achieve and how fast I wanted to achieve. And that's when I turned to base jumpers in Switzerland, where they were driven. They had so much passion of the work they do. And so I started modeling them. And when I started modeling them, I kind of found that drive, but I also started recognizing common patterns because they were not just driven. There was so much of thought into it. There was so much mindfulness into, well, jumping off the cliff. And so that's when I realized that, okay, there's so much to learn from both aspects of things, which is so useful so that you can have that flexibility in well-being. So that's what we're going to do today. And of course, thank you so much, Karen and Ellison, for joining, because as we go through this process, you can share your reflections. I love to do stuff experientially. So even for those of you who are watching live, you can go through the questions that we're going to explore today, the patterns that we're going to explore today. But we can also then have reflections from Karen and Ellison as well today. So thank you so much for joining. And I know that, Ellison, that'll be like 6:30 in the morning for you. I was thinking I woke up early. Yeah. Great, brilliant. So before we start, I'd love to maybe hear a little bit from you guys, Karen and Ellison, just so that also everyone can identify with, if you can pick or think about an outcome, area where you want to bring more wellness. Now, I understand that wellness is such a sort of large word. So the way I would define wellness is, for me, it's finding that balance, finding that place where there is a combination of peace and combination of drive, and balance between the two is wellness for me. But I'm pretty sure that everyone has their own definition of wellness. So from your definition of wellness, if you have an area, if you have an outcome, something that you would like to focus on for the next half an hour, 45 minutes for the time that we are together, and if that is something that you would like to share.
Yeah. Thank you, Nishith. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So my name is Karin. I'm an NLP trainer and coach, and yeah, I find the topic very, very interesting, since it's something I've been reflecting on and thinking on for a couple of years. I remember, Nishith, when I did the master practitioner program in Goa, and it was about choosing a topic for my modeling project. I had several ideas, and one of it was that I shared that sometimes I'm very driven, I'm focused, I'm determined, but then I don't have that balance, or I don't have that taking care of myself. And on the other hand, I can do that, focus on my yoga, meditation, my sleep and everything, and just surrender and let go of things. But then the drive disappears. So I even there thought about doing maybe modeling project, and I did not do it. I did another one, but it's still very much present to me. And I'm in a program that I'm part of right now, working on my health, stepping into a healthy lifestyle. And one element of it for me is time. So managing time in a more efficient way, in a self-caring way, self-respecting way, but also like that balance in it, right? To keep the drive, to keep things going, but also making sure that time supports me in relaxation and everything else. So I think that's the outcome I want to have as well for today. So how to combine both within the element of time.
Okay, great, brilliant. I love when it's balanced. I always find it quite fascinating to work with an idea of well-being with the drive. Often people go one or the other. It's not either or. It's an and. It's a great outcome to work with. Thanks for sharing, Karen. Any thoughts from you, Alison?
Good morning, everybody. I think for me, I live my life from a holistic health balance point of view. And I've been a holistic health practitioner in the past. I currently practice only myself, not with clients nowadays. And it's very, very important to me in how I live my life every day. And as Karen has spoken of various components there, I completely identify with them. The importance of self-care is absolutely number one for me and relates to my own self-reliance to live every day. And my outcome for this would be to bathe in the holistic well-being of all of us attending this amazing summit today, because we are all meant to be well, and to integrate that importance for me specifically of feeling peacefully calm to feel well.
Oh, great. Amazing. I love the word peacefully calm. That's what we say, right? It's like the next level of calmness. Not just calm, but peacefully calm. Great. Brilliant. So, so one of the ways that we're going to do this masterclass, so I know that because Karen and Alison are here, it'll be great in terms of getting reflection from them so that we can understand what's going on, what happens as we go through mainly three patterns that I want to focus on today, because there's so much that we can do in well-being. But if we just focus on these three patterns, that has such a huge impact. And so we could get reflection from Karen and Alison and whoever else joins us, so that we can get an understanding of how these patterns work and what happens, and just how we can identify with some of these patterns. But of course, some of you have joined live with us, so you can do this process and do this exercise with us as we go through this masterclass. Because, like I said earlier, I believe that I'd love to make this experiential, which is to say that all of us should have an experience of what we're doing rather than me just talking about it. So as we explore some of the questions and some of the ideas, you can also do this process and do this exercise with us. And some of you might be looking at this later, and if that happens, even then you can follow the same process. As you're watching this masterclass, you can pause and then do the exercise, play again, and see what happens. And thank you for the question, Jan. Can we deep dive into meaning of base jumpers? Yeah, that's a great question. Sometimes I just assume what that is. People know what that is. Base jumpers are this amazing set of people who basically jump off the cliffs with a parachute. What I find really fascinating about them and why I started modeling them was that often, like I said, the people think that they are adrenaline junkies. It is a very dangerous sport. Sometimes they do it with a wingsuit. So you must have seen some of the videos on Red Bull channel or even on YouTube where people just wear the wingsuit and just jump off the cliff and then fly off and then open the parachute. It is quite a risky sport. And one of the things that are really fascinating with all the base jumpers that I've spoken so far, that I've realized, is that when they are at the cliff, it's not that they're not scared. Often the misconception is that people think that they are scared. They're not scared, but they are scared. But they have this amazing ability to take that jump in spite of being scared. In the context of today's session, today's masterclass, it's also that they have this amazing ability to find calmness standing on the cliff of a mountain and then taking that jump. I mean, imagine that. I mean, part of that for me is that there is always going to be chaos in the world. And since we live in a world where we can't control what happens to us and we can't control the chaos that happens around us, finding that ability to be calm in that chaos is such an exceptional quality to have. And that's something that I modeled from base jumpers. And that's sort of, like you said, deep dive is a great word, because it's literally diving off the cliff of a mountain. And that's what base jumpers do. So we will, like I said, we'll specifically focus on 3 patterns, and we'll spend 5-10 minutes on it. And it is great because the first pattern will sort of embody what we do in that 5-10 minutes for all 3 patterns. Because one of the most significant patterns that I noticed in the Buddhist monks and in the base jumpers is something that I have been working on in the last 2 years, is something that I would call it as less is more. Less is more is such a significant pattern in having that wellness and creating that wellness. So what is less is more? There are so many different definitions of it, but for me is to kind of reduce the noise. So for Buddhist monks, they have this amazing ability that when they are meditating, when they are praying about something, when they are praying for they do a lot of prayers and meditation for a specific cause, for animals, for nature. They have this amazing ability of reducing the noise. So they fully focus on what needs to be focused on and let go of the rest. And they focus on the part that's significant and that part that's important. So often we also define this in a more modern, traditional way, that what's the 20% of the area that you can focus on that can have larger impact in your life, that can have larger impact on your well-being, that can have larger impact on your goals and your vision. And so to kind of jump into less is more, there are 2 questions that we're going to explore today. And so what I can do is I'll ask this question, and then maybe we take a moment for Karen and Alison for you guys to process it, and then you guys can share your thoughts and reflections. And all of you are watching this can also do the same. Take a moment or 2 to just reflect on what happens as you explore this question for the outcome that you've taken as a part of this session. So to kind of step into less is more, what I've discovered is that there are 2 things to focus on. First question is that what is the 20% of areas, or what is the 20% that you can focus on that will have a 80% impact, or that will have a larger impact on your overall well-being. And in other words, it could also be that what is the 20% that you keep and let go of the rest. So let go of the noise, let go of the other distraction that creates that overall larger well-being for you. So if you guys would like to take a moment and then share your thoughts, Karen and Alison. So as you focus on, for now, you don't have to share the details given the time that we have. But what you could do is step into it, that as you focus on just the 20% and let go of the rest, what happens? What's your experience? What do you think about in terms of your thoughts and reflections? And then whenever you're ready, you can share in less is more. Always enjoy Karen processing. Because she just goes. Great. So do you have any thoughts, Alison?
Yes, I'm in the most beautiful space, staring. I'm in the Swiss Alps. I'm just staring at the mountain in front of me. It's very, very early morning, like it is here, but not darkness here. Just so beautiful, the sky. Really noticing the way it changes very, very gradually, sort of pinky coloured. And I can hear the waterfall tinkling away, and the odd Charolais bell as well, just every now and again, and those Charolais kettles just eating very calmly. It's a beautiful, beautiful scene staring at it, outdoors in nature.
Yeah. And what happens for you as you focus on experiencing that nature?
I have that peaceful calm immediately. It's immediate. Just breathing it in and breathing it out.
Right. And so that is your lessons mode. That for you to step into your peaceful calm, this is your 20% that you can focus on. It immediately shifts into your peaceful calm.
Yes. Today, in this moment, yes.
Okay, great, brilliant. Anything from you, Karin?
Yeah, I can share some first thoughts. So I would probably need more time to fully reflect on that. It's also early morning, so my brain works a little bit slower. But the immediate thing that comes to mind in regard to my outcome is the 20% that I want to keep or that I want to focus on, which is going to help me for both, for the drive and for the self-care, is my schedule, my planning, my timeline, which is supporting both, and which I even want to be more strict to really keep it no matter what, because this allows me to be high function, and this allows me to create space for that self-care.
Yeah, great, amazing. So for you, the 20% is focusing on your planning and timeline and so on, and that creates much larger impact on the wellness. Great. Hey, Zoya.
Hey guys, my Wi-Fi is a little patchy today, so apologies for that. But I was listening in on the question, and for me, when I think about what is the 20%, I, for me, it's what is in my control. I feel like that really helps me to acknowledge the 20% and let go of the rest. And I think that is what helps me to go from that less is more. So
No? Well, there was less is more from Zoya. But it is such an important thing, which was, well, almost like I would have said Zoya could have said spoiler alert, because that is the second pattern that we're going to focus on today. But we'll come to the second pattern. First, let's still continue to explore the less is more. So the one aspect of less is more is to explore the question that what is the 20% that you can focus on for your well-being, for your personal growth, for your outcomes, that will create the larger impact for your outcomes. The second question, which I find so much impactful, which has helped me over the last couple of weeks that I've been specifically focusing on to create less is more, is that what are some of the assumptions that you're making with respect to your outcomes? And I'll give you an example of that, what I mean by this. That what are some of the assumptions that you're making with respect to your outcome that if you let go of, that will create a much more impact of less is more for your well-being. So as an example, when I thought about some of my vision, I had a lot of have-tos. So some things had to happen in a specific way. And it was always like presupposed that that's how it works and that's how it happened. So there was an underlying assumed belief. There was an underlying assumption. And so when I let go of that assumption, I automatically felt so much more empowered about the vision that I was working towards. So one of the example of that assumption was that there was a sequence of events that had to happen in terms of achieving my vision. So, for example, there is a program that I'm going to host next year, and in my mind there was a sequence that first this has to happen, and that has to happen, and that has to happen, and that has to happen, and then I will be able to do this. And every time I thought about the sequence in my mind, it created a lot of stress and anxiety because it felt overwhelming and it felt so much. And then I kind of went like, okay, what if I let go of this assumption that this event has to happen in this sequence? What if I let go that it has to happen in this order, and I create something that feels much more empowering and much more enjoyable for me to experience the process of building this program, the process of building this event. And I naturally kind of shifted only on the areas. So it wasn't the whole sequence, there were some components of it created a larger impact. And I just focus on those components that created the larger impact for that program. And that just completely shifted my experience because it moved from being stressful and me being overwhelmed and anxious about it to me actually enjoying and having fun build and really have being in the process of enjoying the process of building the event for me. So restating the question again, that with respect to areas where you currently are not fully into well-being and you'd like to step into well-being, what are some of the assumptions that you're making that's coming in a way of you having uh, balance, that's coming in a way of your well-being? And then what happens as you let go of those assumptions? Yeah. Hey, Divija. So you guys can take a moment. And of course, for people who are joining us live, please feel free to share the answers to this question in the comments. And yeah, as you have some thoughts, let me know.
I can share my thoughts. Since I've been reflecting on that in the last couple of days anyways, I realized what is that assumption, or what is it that let me hold back to really stick to that and create that balance with being strict with creating that space for my self-care, is the price that I have to pay with it for it. So my assumption or my presupposition is either I create a schedule, a timeline which supports myself best so that I can have both, and that works, but that comes with the price of being alone. Because it will mean that I will lesser accommodate to work, I would lesser accommodate to other people's needs. And yeah, so this is the big thought that comes in the way for me, that it's very easy to do that self-care, to create that time for myself, to be more sufficient and having that, but that will also mean that I will end up being alone.
Yeah. And what happens when you let go, because it's an assumption that you'll end up being alone, right? What we call complex equivalence. So what happens when you let go of that assumption?
Then it's very easy. Then it perfectly works. So then that fear is not there, because then I know I'm really great with organizing things, and I'm also great with committing to things. So I can also be committed to what I decide for myself. And if there's not that deep feeling of fear of being left alone, then that's going to be very, very easy.
Great. Brilliant. All right. Any other thoughts or reflections from you guys, Alison, Zoya, Devija?
Yeah, I would say for me, one of the things that comes in the way of balance is kind of adhering to a timeline. So in my head, it's always that I should have done by this time, or I should have been here at this stage in my life at this moment. So I think that is definitely the main um, belief that comes in my way of having that balance for my well-being.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing. I mean, you've chunked it up to the level of life, and often these are so much more what I could term it as core assumptions, or going to the core of what happens. Because when you hold beliefs like I should have been here in my life, and then think about your job or think about your uh, work that you do, it's almost like becomes like a filter, and it builds up. And so it's such a powerful and profound thing to let go of those core assumptions about, oh, I should have been there, could have done this, uh, to step more and more into that balance, like you said, and step more and more into that personal well-being. So that's also one of the exercise that you guys can do. Just take time out at some point today to really reflect on what are some of the core assumptions that you make for your life, in terms of your life. Like Zoya mentioned, one of the things is that I should have been there, or I should have achieved this by this age. But there could be so much more in terms of your job, or in terms of your fitness, in terms of your finances, or just the way you look at life because of the things that are going on in the world. And living with these assumptions acts as a filter, and we process everything through that filter. And when we do that, it sort of piles up and it builds up and takes us away from the balance, takes us away from the well-being. That's such a profound thing to say. Thank you for sharing that, Zoya. Great. All right. So that's one thing, and of course, a big part of this pattern of letting go of the assumptions, I actually learned from base jumpers, and it's true for Buddhist monks as well, because they let go of the assumptions of life, and that brings them so much closer to the nature. But it significantly stood out for me in terms of base jumpers, because it's almost like one of the base jumpers that I was speaking with, and he just went like, if we assume what's going to happen when we make the jump, I mean, they have to look at the facts, like the wind speed, they have to look at the elevation, they have to look at the weather condition, and look at the fact. If they assume what's it going to be like, then it's almost quite challenging. So often, what every jump that they make, they start from scratch. They don't assume that this is what happened last time, so it's the same thing that's going to happen this time. So they let go of all the assumptions of everything that they know about the jump, and they start from scratch every single time, looking at what's present. And that also I found it interesting. That was one of the pattern that I wanted to do today, but kind of felt like if I do too much, then it's too much. But presence is something that I learned from both. I'll give you a quick thing about that. That both Buddhist monks and base jumpers operated from the identity level present. That they are present with what they do, and when they're present with what they do, everything else disappears. So that's sort of like it goes in the category of less is more. But then the question to explore is that how can you kind of step into, or what can you do that allows you to be present with what you're doing, and let go of the rest. We won't go too much deep into the presence part, but it was, I thought, significant. We could go to the second pattern, which is what Zoya has already shared with us. That one of the most significant thing that finds balance is to focus on things that you can control. Now, this is an idea that I feel like most people know in today's world, but often people are not aware of it. They know it, so it's at a knowing level, or they don't fully step into it, or fully embody it. And so the question to explore is that with the vision, with the goals that you have, what part of that is in your control? And how can you how can you step into that, focusing on doing the things that's in your control. So one of the I can give an example of one of the things that happened. This is more so in my personal life, because I often get into the pattern of I want to make sure everyone around me is happy. Everyone, my dad, my friends, family, everyone's happy. And it's a great outcome to have, but often everyone's happiness is not in my control. And so here, I want everyone to be happy, and then they're not happy, and I'm going like, what more can I do? What more can I create? What else can I do? What else can I bring? And I keep thinking, and I keep doing, and I keep doing more and more and more and more. And yet, because, well, people can choose to be happy, it's not in my control. And so that turns into stress, that turns into anxiety. Same thing often happens at work as well. Sometimes some of the goals that I have are not in my control. Like a lot of big part of it is, let's say, sales for the events and programs that I run. And so I have always find it such a powerful thing to consciously be aware, because I know that everyone knows this is an idea, but to really consciously be aware of the fact that what in this is in my control, or sometimes it's also known as your circle of influence. So, what's in your control, what can you influence, what's not in your control that you don't have to worry about at all. But to really step into it and to consciously focus on that, what aspect of this is in my control, and also taking it a step further, because I feel like people focus on this but forget the next step, that how can you actually build strategies and systems for yourself that allows you to focus on what's in your control. Because often I'm aware of what's in my control, but then I get easily distracted by what's not in my control. Specifically happens quite often when I want to keep my loved ones happy, because it's such an important thing, right? We want to keep my loved one happy. But then what's in my control is to be present, to show up, to love, to care, be there when they need. And then outside of that, it's not in my control. So that's the second aspect of today. And this, again, is such a common pattern that I noticed, that the Buddhist monks, and of course, the Buddhist monks is a large category. For me, the monks that I have modeled are Tibetan monks in the Valley of Spiti, the Himalayan Valley of Spiti. And so everyone has their own philosophy. One of the aspects that these set of monks believe in is focusing on what's in their control, and praying for the rest, which I also find it quite empowering, that belief system of praying for the rest, some things that are not in your control, but you pray for them so that you can manifest it and you can influence it, which is great. And the same goes with base jumpers, because when they make a jump, they focus on what's in their control, which is their wingsuit, which is their flight, not everything else, because if they focus on other things, then it can become really complicated. So, second pattern, for your outcome where you want to find more well-being, balance, just taking a moment to reflect on that in these areas, what part of it is in your control. That's one part. And then the second part is, what can you do, or what strategies and systems that you can build so that you can focus on what's in your control and not get distracted by the rest. Yeah, and exactly what you said, Peter. We can't control everything that happens to us, but how we respond to it is in our control, and we can choose how we want to respond to it. And that's absolutely true. This is actually something that was said to me by the head monk of one of the monasteries. It's a region called Tabo, and they had a big monastery. And one of the head monks said exactly the same thing, that our response is in our control, not what other people do. So I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts. Maybe we haven't heard from you at all, Divija, as you process this, as you explore this. that what happens when you put your focus on things that are in your control.
Sure, yeah. I mean, amazing session so far. So reflecting on this, I feel like I'm trying to reflect on an experience where I've already done this before. And I think it's a really simple thing. And since it's around well-being, I think I had a lot of perceptions around, for example, working out every single day and going to the gym. And there was also like sort of an internal state of mind and criteria that I created around that experience, which kind of was actually making it harder for me to get there and actually go to the gym, for example. But I think like what you said was to kind of focus on shifting my internal state, shifting my criteria, and kind of trusting the outcome was a much more enjoyable experience. I also think that, in situations where I've tried to like control what I can't, it makes the experience of that difficult versus enjoyable. And it's more sort of an event where I feel external to it rather than together with it. So yeah, I love what you're saying, and I totally agree.
Yeah, great, brilliant, right? And yeah, thanks, Jen. Internal wise, we can't control, but environment is difficult. Oh yeah, absolutely, we can't control our environment. So what we can do is shift. We can only control how we respond to our environment, and bringing our focus to that, bringing our focus from external to internal. Sometimes we call this reference filter in NLP. Shifting that focus from external reference to internal reference allows us to focus on what we want to focus on and what we want to control. Great. Any thoughts from you, Alison?
Sorry. Yes. I was very struck when you spoke about your personal example, about wanting to make people happy, your loved ones around you. And I could really resonate with that, looking at myself long ago as a child, always wanting to make members of my family happy. And I completely resonate with that. And it's a very old pattern that I had to discover and let go of. And my contribution right now is about I'm going to reframe that, when you love yourself and really self-care, then you'll never have to think about what's happening with other people, because it will bring joy to others, because I am well-being and happy right now, and hopefully everybody out there can feel that as well.
Yeah, amazing. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Alison. Great. So, a little bit of backtracking. 3 things that we are focusing on today. First thing is less is more. And to kind of step into less is more, there are 2 aspects to that. One is to focus on that what's the 20% that you can focus on that creates your overall well-being, that brings your overall balance. The second aspect of well-being, less is more, is that what are some of the assumptions that you're making with respect to your goals or outcomes where you don't have that balance, or where you don't have that well-being. So identifying those assumptions, and then what happens when you let go of those assumptions, that allows you to step more and more into less is more, and more into well-being, more and more into calmness. That's one pattern. And then the second thing is in terms of focusing on control, but 2 aspects. So with whatever goals and outcomes that you have, what part of it is in your control? So that doesn't mean you don't kind of create goals that are not in control. Like I have goals where I want to create impact in the world, but I know that my part of that is that I can create my programs and workshops, and I can reach out to people, and I've just focused on my part. Whatever happens after that could be into feedback, can turn into learning, and I can do better the next time, but I'm also aware of the fact that it's not fully in my control in terms of how people change and how people shift or how people are happy around me. So focusing on what's in your control, and second part of that is, how can you build systems for yourself that allows you to fully focus on what's in your control. And then the third thing, now the third pattern is sort of like the variation. So this is something that, again, I've noticed true for the Buddhist monks and the base jumpers, where I've kind of created a little bit of shift in this so that it's easy to process and it's easy to work with. And this is something that comes from John Grinder. John Grinder was one of the developers of NLP, and he sort of created this thing about 3 demons to personal growth. But my variation of this for today's session will be, I'd call that as 3 demons to personal wellness. And this will be easier said than done. But as you practice and as you master this, when you are able to fully do this, I mean, there's nothing that can come in a way of your well-being. Because then you can, I mean, one of the most common sort of appreciation or feedback or compliment that I get is that I'm always calm. And part of that is me practicing this 3 demons to personal well-being over the period of years. So one of the things that John Grinder said is that there are 3 things that specifically come in a way, and they're attached to our sensory experience. So the first thing is foveal vision. So if you keep a foveal vision, what's a foveal vision? Is having a tunnel vision, like having a really narrow focus. Sometimes it's, well, in NLP, sometimes it's called being in a crash state. But in simpler words, we can even say it as really being narrow focused. So foveal vision, when you're operating from foveal vision, that can come in a way of your personal well-being. And so one of the things that you want to do is to shift from having a very foveal vision to having more peripheral vision, and to sort of just expand your awareness and operate from that peripheral vision. So when you fully step into operating from peripheral vision or awareness state, where you can just be present and be aware of your surroundings and be aware of what's happening, not create any meanings, not create any judgment, not create any labels, associations, nothing, just be fully aware, then you can easily step into the wellness, personal wellness state, personal well-being state. So that's one aspect. This is more to do with your visual. So when you create that peripheral vision, you can fully step into balance and being well. The second thing that comes in the way of your personal wellness is your voice in the head. So all the internal chatter, all the stuff that happens in your mind, inside your head, that takes you away from, being present, that takes you away from being in that awareness state. So letting go of the voice in the head also allows you to be present, and that allows you to be in the wellness state. Sometimes this is also defined as, in NLP, we call this uptime and downtime. So sometimes having downtime is useful because that's when we are in the state of reflection. So that voice in the head is helping us reflect, think about things, process things. But then often the internal chatter that's not in our control, so unconscious or subconscious internal chatter, can come in a way. And so that's when we shift to being uptime, which is to say that getting out of your head to the outside world. So letting go of that internal chatter and internal dialogue. So that's more auditory. So you're kind of being present through your auditory sense by letting go of your internal chatter. Sometimes it's also known as being in the know-nothing state. So you're just fully present and being on the outside. So when you're fully present and being on the outside, then that helps you be in the state of coach state, awareness state, and helps you with personal wellness. And then the third thing is your physiology. This is what associates with kinesthetic. So when you have a muscle tension or when your physiology is not fully relaxed, that comes in a way of your personal wellness. Now, these three things seem very simple, and yet I have noticed that it is not. And it requires practice for you to consistently be in the state of, peripheral vision, no nothing state, so no internal chatter, and no muscle tension. So being more aware of your physiology and how you're using your physiology and how you're working with your physiology. Just creating this, just stepping into these three things where you focus on visual, auditory, and kinesthetic aspect, you can easily and naturally step into your well-being. But this sets as a foundation to your well-being, because eventually everything that we experience is through our senses. And so our senses work as a gateway to our internal experience. And if we learn to be in a sensory experience that's empowering and creates a strong foundation for us, then that almost works as a gateway that no matter what happens, we can respond resourcefully, we can respond empowering, and we have a strong foundation for who we are as a human being. And eventually, when we have the strong foundation for who we are, then nothing can shake that. Nothing can change us, no matter what. And since Andrea's here, that's a cue, I suppose, that I should stop talking.
I'm just trying to blink you, but it's not really visible on the screen. It was an amazing session. Thank you so much. And I want to appreciate the ladies here. Thank you so much, Karin, Divya, and Zoya, and Alison, because I think that was so nice that you have been all participating and reflecting with Nishith. It also shows the way how Nishith works, and also the audience can see the effort and also the impact of a session like this. So I think that was amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And for the audience, thank you so much, Peter, who was always here almost for the 48 hours. I keep telling him to go to sleep or just have a little relax. And also Aichan, thank you so much for being hardcore audience. And then for the others who are rewatching the sessions later, take time to reflect. As Nishith said, it's really important because not everyone will record. As I said it earlier too, it's too much information in a very short time, but we are a well-being and mental health summit. So I have to emphasize, you don't need to be here for 48 hours. We are giving the information, but later you can rewatch every session on your own pace and take out the takeaways and make notes and digest everything. So thank you so much, Nishith. Thank you for the ladies in the room, and have a beautiful Saturday. Spent with your family or with work, maybe like I do. Who knows? And have a lovely, beautiful time. And thank you for celebrating the 5th anniversary, Nishith. I really appreciate you. This GES has been a journey. It's evolving right now, transforming into something beautiful on its own. So I think it's a beautiful journey that we have been together on for the past few years.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me with you for last so many years, and I really appreciate the time and effort being here. I really enjoyed, and I love your energy. And of course, thank you as well for you guys to join and everyone else. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a beautiful time, and thank you for being here. I will play a little video, and then we will jump into another session with Jay and Charm, who are bringing and the second masterclass of today. So see you guys.
See ya.